Hi guys, so today we'll be solving this problem called non-decreasing array. It's the fourth day May lead coding challenge. Let's solve it. Given an array nums with n integers, your task is to check if it could become non-decreasing by modifying at most one element. We define an array in non-decreasing if nums of I is less than equal to nums of I plus 1, holds for every I 0 based, such that I is between 0 and n minus 2. So we've been given an array and we need to return true or false if the array can be made into a non-decreasing array. So for example, in the first array example which has been given to us, so nums is equal to 4, 2, 3, and if we see, we are only allowed to change one element, right? So 2 and 3 are in increasing, which is non-decreasing, right? But when we see 4, 4 is greater than 2. So we know that we can modify at least one element, right? So we modify 4 to 1, and therefore 1, 2, 3 would be increasing, which is non-decreasing. So similarly, in the second example, 4 to 1, so 4 to 1, we see that 4 is greater than 2. So we change 4 to 1, for example. Then we see 1 is smaller than 2. So which is not possible. We can only change one element, right? At most one element. So that is not possible here, and therefore we return false. So how we can solve this problem is by creating a counter to count how many possible digits that we have to change and modify those digits. We can modify those digits by checking if that digit is smaller than the current digit, uh, or maybe we can modify that current. Maybe the problem would be with the current element, or maybe the problem would be the element which is before it, so previous element. So we have to identify which is the element that has a problem, which is not satisfying our condition of non-decreasing array. So I'll be writing that condition and explaining how we can think about that. So let's code it. First, we can maintain a result which counts the number of possible changes that we have to do in the array. So int I is equal to 1, I is less than nums dot size, and we can allow the result to be at most 1. So less than equal to 1, I plus plus. Now, since I've started the index from 1, so we check if nums of I minus 1 is greater than nums of I. Okay, so this violates our condition, right? The previous element can't be greater than the current element. So at this time, we do result plus plus. And then we check if I minus 2 is less than 0, or nums of I minus 2 is less than equal to nums of I. So we check this condition and we update the nums of I minus 1 to nums of I. So what are we doing here? So basically we are checking if it is the first or the second element of the array. So we change the first element, okay? And otherwise we check if it is in between, if the pointer is in between, say suppose it's at 5, then we check if the I minus 2 element, which is before the previous element, if that is also less than equal to the current element. If that is the case, then we change the previous element. Otherwise we change the current element. So we need to identify which is the one that is creating problem. Is it nums of I minus 1 or nums of I, which is the current element or the previous element? So we identify that by these two conditions, and simply after this we return that if this condition is true, that we have at most changed only one element and we've got a non-decreasing array, we return true. Otherwise we return false. So let's run the code to see if everything is working fine. Yeah, so that is accepted. So let me just repeat it once again. So what are we doing here is we are checking if the array is non-decreasing. For that, we have to check if the current element and the previous element, if the previous element is greater than the current element, then we update the counter. And to update the counter means we change the value, either the current element or the previous element. So for that, we check if it is the zeroth, if it's the first and the second element, we change the first element. Otherwise, if it's in between, we check if the problem is with the current element or the previous element by one condition, which is nums of I minus 2 is less than equal to the nums of I. So this shows us that which index or which element is creating the problem in the condition which we need here. So therefore, uh, finally we return result is less than equal to 1, which means we have changed only uh, at most one element, and we return true if that is true, otherwise we return false. So I hope you guys understood the problem. Do solve it. Thank you.